big word for aging. We're looking at the aging immune system called immune senescence. What happens as the immune system ages, and where it is even aging in relatively younger people under 60. And we're going to be looking at the aging of the immune system, what happens to it as it ages, and how we can counteract that aging process of the immune system, even though chronologically our number of years may be going up. In other words, we shall see that some people may be quite old and have an immune system that is functioning like somebody who's age 40 or 50, whereas some people may be 40 or 50 and have an immune system functioning as if they're past 80. So these things we're going to be looking at. Our subject, immune senescence, which means the aging of the immune system, the results of that aging, and what we can do to correct some of the consequences of the aging immune system, or even to delay the aging or senescence of the immune system. Welcome again. Thank you for joining us. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, as we go into our health talk, we invite in the name of Jesus your presence to guide and direct. We thank you for the gift of health and that your word shows us your love and concern that we prosper and be in health physically, even as our souls prosper spiritually. 3 John verse 2. We thank you in Jesus' name, amen. So we begin gradually at around age 60, approaching age 60 and beyond. On average, changes occur which show that the immune system is beginning to age. But these changes can occur younger or older, and there are things we can do to strengthen the aging immune system. To keep it simple, 2 important points I'm going to mention about this aging of the immune system. 1, as the immune system ages, its ability to produce naive or virgin T cells falls off. What are naive or virgin T cells? T cells that are new and haven't yet attacked any invading virus or bacteria, and which are therefore eager to fight. New, naive, virgin T cells, eager to fight viruses and bacteria. As we get older, the immune system is producing fewer of these naive or virgin T cells, which are eager to go and eat up some viruses and bacteria. That's one thing. And the second thing, as we get older and the immune system ages, not only are we not producing new virgin T cells, but our memory cells, the memory T cells, memory B cells that will remember a past infection, these begin to use the Bayesian term, to don't remember exactly what they should remember and begin to produce a pro-inflammatory molecule called interleukin 6, IL-6. Now, IL-6, which normally, under right circumstances and in right quantities, can play a good role. As we age and more of this interleukin 6, IL-6 is produced, it begins to attack almost every cell in the body and creates havoc. So 2 things are happening as the immune system ages. To keep it simple, naive or virgin T cells are being produced lesser production, and the memory cells are beginning to get old, and they begin to produce this protein, this cytokine called interleukin-6, which when it is present in excess can be a very dangerous fellow in causing inflammatory damage to a whole host of tissues and cells, cardiovascular system, heart, brain, and also further ages and weakens the same immune system that is already old and is producing it. So this interleukin-6 is a dangerous fellow as the immune system ages. So we're going to keep it simple at that level for now. We'll do more on it later on. Now, so if you are not producing enough new virgin naive T cells, your ability to fight a virus or a bacterial infection is going to be less than when you were younger. Hence, older people are more prone to influenza and COVID severity and so on. As a matter of fact, you should know that in people over age 65, the top 10 causes of death include influenza, pneumonia, and sepsis. So the older you get, and especially if there's an underlying condition, a flu passes, we're not even talking about COVID-19, a flu passes, a pneumonia passes, and you're old, with or without an underlying condition, if your immune system is aging, you're likely to be in trouble. So a younger person may get a pneumonia and recover, a younger person get a flu and recover. An older person with an aging immune system, those same things in the aging immune system and an aging age group can cause quite severe illness and even death. But we're also realizing that some younger people who should still have a relatively young immune system are exhibiting the evidences of an aging immune system, though chronologically young, and a flu or pneumonia may trouble them as it troubled those who are chronologically older. All right. So we're going to look first of all at this interleukin-6. We're going to spend a little time on that before coming back to helping the immune system cells to produce more of the new or virgin or naive T cells. So one researcher, for example, wrote this article entitled "Inhibiting Interleukin-6, the Key to Health." So even apart from aging, what are some of the factors that would cause a person's immune system or any particular system in the body, because the immune system is not the only system that can produce interleukin-6, as I will explain in a minute. What are some of the things that would cause a person to be producing more of this dangerous cytokine, interleukin-6, to damage tissues? Well, some of them we know already, and we should be on top of that. Smoking at any age would cause a person to produce more of this inflammatory cytokine, interleukin-6. Lack of sleep, alcohol abuse, eating too much, especially too much refined sugars and refined carbohydrates, obesity. So these are things in any age group: smoking, alcohol abuse, too much sugar, overeating, lack of sleep, obesity, in any age group, that will cause the overproduction of this interleukin-6, IL-6, which is a dangerous cytokine that creates inflammation and wreaks havoc across the tissues of the body. Aging itself can do it too. Well, if we know these things, we know that we shouldn't smoke or drink alcohol. avoid sugar and refined processed carbohydrates, don't overeat. Hence, we come back to our eating less, controlling the appetite, intermittent fasting, or if you don't like that term, 2 meals a day. Chronic stress also increases this interleukin-6. So stress is all around. We have to learn to relax, trust God, pray, listen to classical music, spiritual music, claim the promises, enjoy nature. So those are some of the things that will cause this interleukin-6, this cytokine, to be overproduced and cause a lot of damage. So sometimes we may see on the television report that a relatively young person, 20, 30, and that age group, would have caught the COVID. The statement would be they had no underlying conditions, that is, no known underlying diagnosis. Notice the words there, no known. And they succumbed, and we wonder why. And a lot of research is showing now that when we see younger people succumbing to flus of any kind and so on, interleukin-6 might have been higher than it should be because of they're not sleeping. Nobody knows that. So nobody says they have an underlying condition. They may be using too much sugar and look pleasantly plump and said to look good. So a lot of factors can cause overproduction of this interleukin-6 at any age, but especially when we are aging, we have to look out to avoid the things that would cause it to be overproduced. And this brings us now to a point about exercise. Now, if you vigorously exercise for more than 2 hours, the muscles produce interleukin-6. But it has been shown that the interleukin-6 of the muscles that the muscles produce is not similar, exactly similar to that which the immune system produces. It is not as inflammatory. Nonetheless, the researchers are saying that we should avoid overexertion in our exercise for a long period. In other words, half an hour walk, or an hour in the gym, that's good enough. Going up towards 2 hours and pushing it, especially if you are older, and men, for men, it is more dangerous than women. That's an amazing thing. Women can get away with prolonged exertion. In men, the risk for a dangerous heartbeat disorder called atrial fibrillation is more marked in older men overexerting and prolonging the exercise for more than 2 hours as compared to women. Well, we can see how that physiologically fits women. Women have to go through labor. Labor is a prolonged period of stress, so their bodies are made to endure. And women therefore handle, although we think they're less muscular than us men, women handle a prolonged period of physical exertion better in terms of how their physiological systems respond than men who think they're macho and muscular overexerting for a long time. So older men are warned not to push your exercise beyond 2 hours and to keep it moderate. Okay, now, having said all those things, exercise is important. You don't have to overdo. And the IL, interleukin-6 from the muscle, doesn't do the same kind of damage as that from the immune system. So we haven't touched that, we don't move on. All right. So this interleukin-6 is now being shown to be involved in heart failure. Sometimes an old person with no history of high blood pressure, no history of diabetes, no history of coronary artery disease of any major type, develops chronic heart failure of old age. And they just put it down as aging heart. They're now realizing that this interleukin-6 cytokine can weaken the heart muscle, weaken the kidney, weaken the brain, triggering towards Alzheimer's. So interleukin-6 this dangerous cytokine can cause a lot of damage as a person ages, or even in younger persons if they're doing things that will increase its production in the body. Remember those things: smoking, alcohol excess, lack of sleep, chronic stress, too much sugar, refined processed carbohydrates, and eating too much, and obesity. All right, having gone through those and having made sure you have them, we are going to move on a little bit now and look at what are some of the things we can do, therefore, especially as we are about 60 or up. The youngsters may feel that they're far away from that. So let me just go over, because some have joined us since I started. We're looking at the immune system and immune system age and immune senescence. And we're saying that as the immune system ages, two things, and we're keeping it simple, two things are noticed. One, its ability to produce naive or virgin T cells declines. So your ability to attack, this is the innate immune system, the ability to attack a virus or a bacterium is not like when it was younger. And two, old memory cells begin to not function properly, and not only not function properly, but produce a cytokine known as interleukin-6. Interleukin-6 is a cytokine that, though it can play an important role in fighting in infection, if it is overproduced and the immune system is not balanced, this cytokine interleukin-6 can cause chronic inflammation and tissue damage. It has been shown that a lot of centenarians, for example, who reach 100 and beyond, when they check their interleukin levels, they're rather low. And a lot of people dying earlier from heart disease and so on, when you check the interleukin levels, they're rather high. So you want to keep that interleukin cytokine level down. All right. Now, so let's look again at the most common causes: chronic stress, too little sleep, eating too much, smoking, excess alcohol, overexertion, obesity. And then if a person is already hypertensive or diabetic, those diseases are also connected to chronic inflammation. They're usually already contributed to by the same interleukin-6, and then cause more interleukin-6 to be produced as a spiral. Interleukin-6 causing damage, and then the damage causing the immune system to react by producing more interleukin-6. You have a spiral of aggravation. All right. So, our health measures tells us to avoid smoking, avoid alcohol, get adequate sleep, exercise moderately, avoid sugar, eat healthy, your vegetables, your plant-based diets, and so on. Avoid refined processed carbohydrates and refined processed meats, which all increase inflammation, including interleukin-6, this dangerous cytokine. So what are some of the things we can do then, apart from those basic principles? And those basic principles are important. So if you are obese, you should definitely start on the program to get the weight off. You'll be surprised how a number of young people, 20s and 30s and 40s, have on too much fat. And already at that young age, interleukin-6 levels are higher than they should be, and there will be markers of chronic inflammation. And in hematology, we have a marker called the ESR, erythrocyte sedimentation rate, that begins to inch up. And then another marker called C-reactive protein that begins to inch up. And kidney function begins to not be as perfect as it should be. The liver begins to accumulate fat. These are things that indicate chronic inflammation from excess fat, obesity, and eating wrong. And it's beginning to happen in relatively young people. So the health reform message the principles of primary prevention are so important. So important. All right. Now, let me just mention before I go on that interleukin-6 in normal, healthy people in the younger age group at low levels plays an important role. It is when it is overproduced by an immune system that itself is aging that we see problems. All right. Everybody following me so far? So around the age of 60, physiological changes occur that begin to derail our immune system. We call it immune senescence or immune aging. And it is now realized that it causes disability and death in aging human beings. So an old person may be going along, and because the immune system is aging and they're not making enough new virgin naive T cells, and the old memory cells are producing too much interleukin-6, an old person may be going along, the influenza breaks out, dengue fever breaks out, chikungunya, any virus breaks out, and they get a good severe lash that may threaten them with death. Or a pneumonia passes, and lo and behold, they're in trouble. And pneumonia is quite a common killer in the older age group, especially if they have an underlying condition. All has to do with the aging immune system and having more interleukin-6 than you should have, producing an increased level of chronic inflammation and making tissues more susceptible to damage. So what are some of the things we should do then, other than those general things? Let's go over the general things again. Adequate sleep, cope with stress, get rid of excess fat, which is mean eating less, cut out the sugars, refined processed carbohydrates, moderate exercise, no tobacco, no alcohol. Those are the basic things. And as one expert says, if you are obese, the most important health principle you should follow, the most important thing you need to do is to get the excess fat off. Not go take anything else, get the excess fat off. That's the most important thing. So because fat is dangerous, so we don't want to discourage anybody who may have a bit more fat than they should, but we're letting you know, don't panic over or lower your self-esteem, just determine to get it off. Eat less, exercise moderately more, cut out the sugars and the refined flours, go on the 2 meal a day, 16-8 intermittent pattern, and that weight will come off. And as that fat comes off, your immune system will be less dysregulated. You'll be producing less of this cytokine interleukin-6, relieving your body from this chronic inflammation. Liver and kidneys and all the organs will work better. You'll feel better, more energy and so on, and better able to fight any infection that should pass, viral or bacterial. All right. And they're also implicating this interleukin-6 in terms of the brain. In excess, it also causes brain damage and hastens cognitive decline or dementia as we get older. And it also tends to produce frailty in the elderly. So if you're getting older and you want to avoid being frail, at the same time, they're saying you have to keep an eye on this interleukin-6 and do things, both the general and specific things that we'll mention soon, to keep its levels down. One other thing to mention before I go on is that in some people, as they age, something happens. The aortic valve, which is as the big artery, the aorta, leaves the left ventricle, there's a valve there that controls the flow of blood onward, prevent it from regurgitating into the left ventricle. And that aortic valve can become stiff and thickened and calcified and narrowed, so that when the left ventricle contracts or squeezes, it has a hard time forcing the blood out through that narrowed, stiff, cemented with calcium aortic valve. It is a condition called aortic calcific aortic valve stenosis. Stenosis in medicine means narrowed. Calcific means a lot of calcium is there, the aortic valve. So the aortic valve tends to become narrow and stiff with aging, but we're beginning to see people who are not past 75, people in their 50s and 60s beginning to develop this stiffening and tightening and narrowing of the aortic valve, and they're implying the same interleukin-6 again, along with other factors in that kind of a thing. All right. And don't forget, we've already mentioned insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is a serious thing if you have on too much fat, if you are eating too much dangerous fat, if you're not exercising half an hour to an hour every day, and if you're consuming refined processed stuff, then it makes it more difficult for insulin to work. That is called insulin resistance, and that in itself creates chronic inflammation and causes the body to produce more interleukin-6. And then interleukin-6 damages the pancreas, preventing it from being able to produce enough insulin, a vicious cycle again. So how we look around this interleukin-6 in excess is a dangerous fellow, interleukin-6. All right. I have a list here, interleukin-6. If you decrease it, it will decrease the progression of many conditions. It will, if you decrease the level of interleukin-6, it can stop heart disease from progressing. It can stop diabetes from progressing. It can ease pain in joints, rheumatoid arthritis, asthma, and all those things. So interleukin-6 is a vagabond molecule that can make anything there worse and can trigger anything that may not be there and cause it to go on. So we want to reduce the levels of inflammation in our body, and we want to reduce this interleukin-6. So let's look now at the top ways, and we have all the scientific evidence I can share with you. These are studies done, the top ways to inhibit interleukin-6. And we're going to start with simple things that we may not think about. Certain spices that we use. And guess, you know, this is an American researcher, and they're writing things that they don't have a lot of, but we have some here in Barbados. Bay leaf. Some good old bay leaf tea. Imagine that. Bay leaf tea helps to lower inflammation. A moderate amount of black pepper, nutmeg, oregano, and sage. And oregano is put in blue in this article because of the top herb. Now, oregano grows very easily. It is called the immortal herb. You just have to put a piece in the mud, in the dirt, in the ground, and it grows. Everybody can grow a little pot of oregano and just use a few leaves in your, cut it up and put it in your bean stew, in your rice, in your smoothie. Oregano helps to lower interleukin-6 levels. Bay leaves do. A little bit of black pepper. Sage does. So of those herbs, they underline oregano as the key one. In terms of minerals, zinc, a lot of people don't get enough zinc, but zinc and magnesium, and a lot of people are deficient in zinc and magnesium. Zinc and magnesium come in our whole seeds and grains and nuts, but you can also supplement if you wish. Probiotics help to lower interleukin-6. Take a good probiotic and use the fibers that strengthen the probiotics in your gut. And then, of course, you know, we can't miss what we've been talking about almost all during the lockdown. Vitamin D3 helps to keep interleukin-6 levels down. Vitamin D3 is a powerful anti-inflammatory vitamin. We've talked about it so much in our health talks for the past 4 months. Vitamin D3 keeps interleukin-6 levels down. And then we come to others like that we know already: curcumin, turmeric, fresh turmeric, turmeric powder, a turmeric curcumin supplement, but turmeric. As a matter of fact, they're saying that each of those have different advantages. For example, the fresh turmeric from the ground, you wash it and cut it up and put it in your food or in a shake or smoothie, or the powder, or the supplement. But they say that you get certain things from the whole root that you may not get in the dried powdered form. And of course, in the supplement, you're getting the maximum curcumin, but may get fewer of the other curcuminoids. So the experts say use all three. Use some fresh turmeric, use some powder, and get a good supplement. And then you'll be getting all and getting optimum absorption. You see, in the fresh turmeric, the curcumin absorption may not be as good as in certain kinds of supplements, but you get the other curcuminoids and curcumin oils. So some fresh turmeric, some powdered turmeric, and a supplement, because curcumin and turmeric have been shown to be powerful against all inflammation, not only interleukin-6, but trominocosis factor alpha and beta, and some other vagabond molecules that, when they're in excess, can wreak havoc, although when they're in balance, they're good. So turmeric. And remember, the little black pepper helps absorb the turmeric, and black pepper itself also helps to lower interleukin-6, but small amounts. Other spices that are around your kitchen that you take for granted that are put in blue here in this article and emphasize: cinnamon tea, cinnamon in your bread, cinnamon in whatever you're doing, cinnamon in your shake. Cinnamon lowers interleukin-6. So look at cinnamon and curcumin, bay leaf, oregano, things that are not costly all around us. On mornings walking, you pass a bay leaf tree, pick a few. You can plant some oregano on any piece of ground you have, piece of pot. It doesn't stop growing. Oregano, powerful stuff. It is anti-cancer too. So look at some cheap things around us that we take for granted that help, along with the general principles, help to lower interleukin levels. And then some other molecules now. Boswellia, you would have heard me talk about Boswellia, frankincense. And you usually have to get this. You can get the frankincense oil, and then you can get the beta boswellic acid extract from the oil. You can get it from health food stores. You can order it, but it is especially good for people with evidence of inflammation, joint pain, and you combine the curcumin from turmeric with the boswellia from frankincense. I mentioned it to a chap. He went to the health food store and got some boswellia, and he got such good results. He keeps taking it. He said the other things like diclofenac and so on that he was using would work for a time, but the thing about boswellia is that it is natural. It acts on a lot of pathways in the body, protects the brain and heart and so on. Boswellia, very good stuff. Usually comes in a soft gel, and you have to swallow it, but it's good. Boswellia and curcumin, reducing interleukin-6 levels, anti-inflammatory. And resveratrol, you would have heard me mention from red grapes, also available in supplement form, resveratrol, red and purple grapes. Resveratrol lowers interleukin-6. Red yeast rice lowers interleukin-6. People use that sometimes if they have high cholesterol and want to keep natural. And apigenin, you ever heard of apigenin? Apigenin is found quite a lot in chamomile herbal tea. And the thing about chamomile herbal tea is it helps you sleep at night too. If you have a thing, chamomile is a good tea, contains apigenin. So chamomile and bay leaf, they help to lower interleukin-6 levels, and all these things are cheap. The most expensive of these things I've mentioned so far would be the Boswellia soft gel. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Garlic, which you indicated, or we should use it, cutting it open and let it sit for 15 minutes. But if you're putting it in water, just plain water, so that you're drinking garlic water, should you still cut it and put it to sit for 15 minutes before you put it in the water, or you can put it in the water immediately?
Well, you can do it both ways, but those who look into it the most say that however you're going to use it, if you crush it or cut it up and let it rest for a few minutes, you get a greater yield of allicin than if you don't do that. So crush it or cut it up and wait a while before you put it in the water or cook with it and so on. You get a greater yield of the allicin.
Okay.
All right. Now also in decaffeinated green tea, you have epigallocatechin gallic acid, EGCG, decaffeinated green tea and so on. You want the caffeine out, but the EGCG is very good for also lowering the levels of interleukin-6. Now you notice that if people carry excess weight, after a while they begin to complain about their joints, knee joint, and a lot of people at an early age now are getting arthritis of the spine from the neck down. Then you get tingling and numbness in the fingers if the arthritis is in the neck spine, and you think something is wrong with your fingers. No, it is the nerves that come out in the neck to supply the upper limbs. They get a little bit of irritation by the chronic arthritis in the neck, which is called in medicine spinal spondylosis, and I get the tingling and pain down to the fingers, but the problem is the arthritis in the neck. Similarly, arthritis in the lumbar spine can cause sciatica, a shooting pain down the leg. And we're seeing this kind of degenerative arthritis in the spine now in the younger age group. Years before, it used to happen only beyond 60, 65. Now we're seeing people in the 40s and 50s, especially if their diet is not anti-inflammatory, especially if they're obese. Levels of inflammation are increasing in the younger age groups, and they're getting these arthritic situations in the spine. And interleukin-6 is right at the center there, wreaking havoc. The carotenes, like lycopene and beta-carotene and luteolin and astaxanthin and all of those, they help to lower. So your carotene-rich foods and green leafy vegetables. Omega-3, like flax, or in those who use it, the omega-3 fish oil extract, but omega-3. Walnuts, omega-3 again. And then I have a little bit to tell you about something we've been talking about. Let me just share it with you now. A super, we call it a nut, okay? Pecans. Pecans. Well, when you get a chance, Google pecans and ask in your Google search, are pecans fruits or nuts? And you'll be surprised that pecans, technically speaking, in terms of botany, are fruits. That's a surprise, eh? Surprise to me too. You can check it out. They are a kind of fruit that looks like a nut, but they're technically speaking a fruit. Having said that, everybody calls them a nut, so pecans are nuts by colloquial use, but they're technically, botanically, a fruit. But that's by the way. I have an article here on pecans which says, when people hear about pecans, they think about pecan pie and sweet potato casserole with pecans and so on. And the researcher says, all of that sugary stuff isn't necessary just put a few pecans in your hand and eat them. Because when you go doing these other things, you only spoil it with the sugar. So you can do those same things without the sugar, of course. And pecans are high in protein. They are rich in healthy fats, especially, watch it, oleic acid. And oleic acid acts on a gene called the HER2/NEU gene that especially is involved in the development of breast cancer. So eating pecans tend to suppress that gene and reduce the risk of breast cancer in our ladies. Dear ladies, so a few pecans a day, like a few walnuts a day, wonderful to protect your body, including the breast, from cancer. And the monounsaturated fat in pecans and walnuts also will help to reduce inflammation and interleukin-6. So walnuts, pecans help to protect against breast cancer. Walnuts and pecans help to lower interleukin-6. And remember the things we talked about already, bay leaves. We can even put lemongrass in there as well because it contains the same kind of substances, lowering your interleukin-6 levels. Now, some others too, black cumin seed oil, you've heard of that? Black seed oil, black cumin seed oil is very powerful. You can rub it on the skin. People use it. It is anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory. Black cumin seed oil contains a substance called thymoquinone, which is anti-inflammatory and reduces interleukin-6 levels. Okay, so we have a lot of information then, generally and specifically, on how to keep our interleukin levels down and reduce inflammatory damage, keep heart and kidney and liver working better longer. A lot of information. Let's go over it. Adequate sleep at night. Avoiding being stressed out. Getting rid of excess fat. No smoking, no alcohol, no sugars. Eating a healthy plant-based diet. Avoiding refined processed carbohydrates or meats. Moving to the 2-meal-a-day regime if you're an adult. If you want to stick to 3 meals, let the last meal be very, very light. And intermittent fasting is a very good way for getting rid of excess fat. And intermittent fasting has been shown to also reduce chronic inflammation and lower interleukin-6 levels. And then we talked about the specific things, zinc and magnesium, bay leaf, black pepper, sage, nutmeg, and the number one in them, oregano. We talked about vitamin D3, crucial when you get your vitamin D levels up. And I was just reading a researcher who said vitamin 3 is going to be relatively useless if you already have insulin resistance. If you have insulin resistance, try and get that insulin resistance corrected by eating correctly and intermittent fasting. And then as the insulin resistance is corrected, vitamin D will be allowed to work because insulin resistance and chronic inflammation can destroy vitamin D's impact. And if you're obese, you need more vitamin D3 than if you're thin, because a lot of it will hide away in the fat. Now, you've heard of a substance called ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is an adaptive herb. It helps you to cope with stress, to relax, and to be calm. Very protective of the brain. Helps to reduce cortisol levels that keep you fat if you're under stress. And ashwagandha also helps to reduce chronic inflammation and interleukin-6. And even recently, they've been doing some research on a molecule that we used to do a lot with in psychiatry and medical school, lithium in high doses to treat manic depressive bipolar disorder, lithium. But research is now showing that small amounts of lithium are naturally part of our mineral chemistry, and that a lot of people are deficient in even that small amount that they should have, and that a tiny amount of lithium a day prolongs life and helps to reduce chronic inflammatory damage. You can check it out yourself. Interesting. Tiny amount, just a few micrograms. And then I mentioned before quercetin. Now, quercetin is a non-citrus bioflavonoid. You get it from tamarinds and gooseberries. You can buy a supplement. Quercetin. Berries are rich sources of quercetin. Berries and certain grapes, tamarins, gooseberries, dunks. Quercetin is a powerful bioflavonoid that is anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, and is a powerful reducer of inflammation and interleukin-6, that dangerous cytokine, which is our subject for the afternoon. So as we age, and the immune system tends to become senescent, old, and we want to keep it in tip-top shape. This afternoon, we looked at the second part of what we introduced. As your immune system ages, it does not produce enough naive, virgin T cells, so you're not as equipped to attack any virus or bacteria as you should. But then the memory cells get old and begin to biochemically dote, in inverted commas, and produce more interleukin-6 than they should. And interleukin-6 can damage every tissue in your body. And what we've done this afternoon, we'll have to come back next time, please God, and look at how to improve the virgin T cells. What we've looked at this afternoon is how to reduce the interleukin-6 in your body, whether young or old, and especially as you age. And the general principles are very important. And then the specific things that we mentioned that will reduce interleukin-6 and keep away chronic inflammation from your spine and your joints and your body, and keep the brain and heart and everything working. So I will now, with a few minutes to go before 6, open up for any questions or sharing. But I hope you've got the general. And next time we look at the other aspect of it, how to boost your virgin T cells. Question time.
Junior here. I have a question.
Yes, brother.
You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. It's a Boswell strap, but it's not the soft gel. It's the hard tablet. That smells very pungent. That will do the same thing?
Well, many different manufacturers make various varieties of Boswellia for marketing. One of the best is the Bosmed Terinaturally Advanced